to introduce Georgina. Georgina is a professor of institution and local development at the International Institute of Social Studies of Erasmus University of Rotterdam. She is a leading scholar in the currency and complementary system, in the monetary innovation and in the local development. So I give the floor to Georgina.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Let me first say, express my gratefulness to the CNR for having invited me, but more than that, for having made me feel so welcome. So thank you very much. And I would also like to give an apology that my Italian is not good enough for this presentation. So, but I can understand if you feel more comfortable making questions in Italian, that's good, I hope. And I will try to speak slowly, otherwise we will have a problem in communication. So let's see how we deal with this lingua franca in English. And what is the topic of today? I am, in a way, going to refer to solidarity, because without it, nothing of what I will speak about would make sense. And that is living with different currencies. Currencies as money. Money is very often the untouchable of the economy. And it's when we start thinking about how money can be touchable that we can start doing things with it. So I will refer, maybe not, how do I pass? To a concept that is monetary plurality, and that means basically having more than one type of money in a territory. And yesterday we were discussing this with Luca, and perhaps because money has this veil that hides things, that is the untouchable, in Italy at the moment you have at least 3 currencies that I can think of. One is the obvious one, the euro, but you also use these vouchers for lunch, and I don't know if you also have it for petrol, but you have lunch with these vouchers, then the restaurant will collect the money from Sodexo, a multinational, and then this is a circuit. So this is your second type of currency. You also may accumulate points in the supermarket that you can get something with them. We accumulate miles when we travel with airlines, etc. So there is this private currency circulating. And there is the third one, that there are the small, very community-based, very local types of currencies. I know the Banca del Tempo, for example, in Italy is very spread out. But now Francesca was talking to me about one in Torino, a small community. You also have in some small religious communities that they use their own kind of currency. So you have 3. And perhaps you didn't think about this before, but you, as more or less every country in the world, live a situation of monetary plurality. The arrow, yes. Yes, okay, so what I'm trying to say with this is that monetary plurality has been pervasive across the globe and across history. We would have to try very hard to find one country that has not had more than one type of currency at some point in their lives. Of course, in history, this was much more common because coins was something that the rich would use. Usually, a coin was a very big value for the poor to buy their daily necessities. So there was a clear stratification in coins for the rich, coins for the poor, but also different coins and different currencies for different uses. So, well, I was telling the example of ancient Roman coins that did not have the face of the emperor because they were used for paying for sex work, for the brothels. And of course, you cannot have the face of the emperor in a coin that is going to be used for sex work. So there were also different uses for different kinds of currencies. And Bell says, yes, Bell says, okay, but there is a hierarchy. So you have money that can be used for everything, the best money. Then you have different levels of different types of hierarchies. And if you want to pass from one level to the other, this involves transaction costs. You have to pay a money changer to be able to do that. And this is what I will try to show, that this is not really true. So I'm going to use two more concepts. One is the one of the circuits, and the question of how these monetary circuits interact with each other. Now, you might say, if I speak of three types of currencies, what am I talking about when I say currencies? And this is a very difficult question to answer, because what was used as currency, as money, in different cultures in history could have been, yes, coins and banknotes and paper, but also coffee beans, cigarettes, shells, or the system of notes that was used in some cultures. One more knot means I owe, and if I tie the knot, it means it has been paid. So there have been many ways of counting money. This is something that I found in the Vatican Museum, ancient Babylon had a lot of clay, of course, so if I make you can see these little marks, it means one more. So that means I give you 2 sheep, yeah? And we do the registration of this extra sheep by making one more cuneiform. I'm not sure what is the way for this. We make one more mark in clay. So basically, we think that money is all these social practices that include power and class relationships. They are socially constructed in their meaning. They're abstract representations of value, so it is not easy to identify those social practices that we consider money. And this is one of the reasons why money is so untouchable in economics, because we cannot really say what it is. We will refer to Polanyi and his idea of the institution of these practices when we start thinking that they have a normative content. And in terms of currency, I'm going to speak about how currencies are linked to agents, to the uses of this specific function or this specific use of money. And I will underline that currency circuits become, or the use of different currencies become stable, institutionalized, precisely when they make the circuit. I come back to this point. And just as a reminder for the economists, when we speak about the functions of money, we say money does 4 things. It's a unit of account, so it's what we use to count things, like we would use meters to count distance or space. It's means of payment, so it's this thing that circulates. It's a medium of exchange, that is what we use to cancel debts. And it's a reserve of value. Yeah, we need to save intertemporally the value of something. And I'm saying complementary, currencies become stable, institutionalized, when they can describe a circuit. Different agents exchanging things with each other. And at some point, this circuit is closed. Yeah, we have the full circle, and this is what makes them, what gives them some stability, some institutionalization, and what defines the value of what is being exchanged with this. And an economy with multiple currency circuits would look more or less like this. So what we are saying is that it is perfectly possible for one particular agent or institution to be using different currencies at the same time. The only thing that we are saying is we have different means of payment in our pocket, like we have a few euros and maybe a couple of credit cards from different banks. So in a way, we are reproducing this idea of which means of payment I use for which purchase. Now imagine that instead of having cards denominated in euros, we have cards denominated in a number of currencies. And this is basically what it looks like. And there are different ways in which this monetary plurality, this complementarity works, and that is, they can be autonomous. This would look like your regionalism graph. So they can be completely autonomous, no interaction. They can compete against each other. This is the idea of Stephanie Bell. There is a hierarchy and they are competing to be the best money. We can use them at the same time, like we would use, I don't know, coins and banknotes, perhaps, to pay for something. Or we can use them in a supplementary position, one thing for one thing, one currency for the other thing. Well, there's a whole book that I would be happy to share the link. You can download it about this with different cases. And I'm saying that these currency circuits have two key aspects. The first one is the idea of community. There has to be something in common. And this is where the idea of solidarity comes in. And I define solidarity as interdependence. So when I speak of trust, I speak of an individual perception. When I speak of solidarity, I speak of something that has a social ontology. It exists beyond the individual human being. No? And of course the territory, because there is a specific space where this money, these complementary circuits take life, have a life of their own. I said money is an untouchable. Yeah, we think money is something that comes from the government. The government puts money into circulation, a central bank, and we use it, fine. But in reality, much of the creation of money relies on banks. When a company asks for a credit, a loan, the bank creates money because, in fact, what they keep in the vault is a very small amount of monetary base, a small amount of euros or whatever. And if you ask for a loan of 5 million euros, they will give it, and they create these 5 million euros minus whatever reserve they have with their own. So in this way, they create money. This is the neo-Keynesian perspective of money creation. But what is perhaps more interesting for us is that the third sector, that Andrea Fumagalli was talking about, the third sector, civil society, grassroots, community, groups, they can also create money. Because what they see as resources to back up, to use as collateral, to guarantee this creation of money, is precisely their solidarity, their mutual agreement. I believe that when, what was your name again? Ricardo, let's imagine, for example, I will give this bottle of water. We can use water, perhaps something we all consume, as unit of account. Yeah? So I will ask him to fix my bike for a bottle of water. And he cannot cook, so can you cook? Okay, so Rafaela is going to cook for him, and he can use this bottle of water to pay for it. And at some point we will close the circuit, okay? Now, when he accepts to do something for this, he believes this has some value. But perhaps instead of using the bottle of water that he can use, at the end of the day, we can drink it. We can use pencils or cigarettes, and he doesn't smoke. So what can he do with a cigarette? Nothing. He doesn't use pencils. He uses only computer. So this is useless on itself as a commodity. But he believes that Rafaela will cook for him in exchange for this pencil. And then the resource is the belief, the trust that we are interdependent in the use of our needs, our exchanges. So what is used as a resource is precisely this idea of trust that each one of the individuals in the third sector has in the group, but also the solidarity, the interdependence that if he wants to eat, he has to accept this pencil as means of payment. This has nothing to do with being nice and feeling happy with each other's need. He's hungry. He needs to eat her food. If we look at this from a little bit more at the meso level of the local economy, we can think of this locality, which is a bucket with holes. So in this bucket, things come in. No, tourists bring in money. We sell things, and as a region, money comes in. We get money from the government, etc. But there are holes in this bucket. The holes are what we spend elsewhere as tourists, the umbrellas we buy from China when it rains, and so on. So there are holes in this economy. And what a local money can do is to, like this monkey, start plugging the holes, the leaks in this bucket. Because a local money is something that is useful only within a specific territory. And that's why I'm saying we have these two components of the solidarity, the community, and the idea of the territory, the locality. So I'm thinking in this paper, in what ways do agents match currencies with purpose? How do they intersect in the local economy? Remember, we have different circuits. Okay, so how do they cross from one circuit to the other? And what does this monetary plurality do for the local economy or in the local economy? I'm going to present, as I said, dividing the types of currency by the functions they fulfill. I am starting from the idea that these currency circuits I will talk about, that they are circuits, they close the circle, and that there are combinations and different things that different types of money do. So let me talk about Argentina during 98 to 2016. I stopped in 2016 because I have no data anymore. After a certain point, I stopped collecting. I'm going to look at the micro level, the households, the families, and small businesses. And this has been done via surveys, interviews, focus groups. I mean, I have been collecting data on this for 20 years, so I think I have used every method in the book. Quick introduction, Argentina had a very serious crisis in 2000 to 2002, more or less. It's difficult to say, to put years, because actually the economy started shrinking in 98, and it only recovered seriously by 2003. And within this whole period, we have a loss of 25% of the GDP. And there are, in fact, two official currencies, and that is the dollar and the peso. The peso is the currency issued by the central bank, but because of inflation and the tradition and the way Argentines think about money, it was also possible to use dollars. So if you want to save, you save in dollars. If you want to buy something really big, you would save in dollars until you have enough, and then you can buy a house or a car. This is easy to understand. We are all used to having official currency. However, at some point, because of the fiscal deficit of different provinces, and because they were allowed to do this, the provinces, we have 23 provinces, also started paying back their debts in bonds, but thinking also that they would be very efficient as means of payment. So they denominated these bonds in very low amounts. So let's say the city of Rome pays back its debt in bonds of 10 euros and gives it to everyone that wants to do it. And since nobody had money and everybody started saying, well, this is better than nothing, suppliers, workers, this money started circulating. These bonds started circulating as money, and that's why they were called quasi-currencies. It's not really a currency. It started as a bond. It has 1 year validity, but since everybody accepts it, we call it a currency. And they closed the circle, because at the end of 1 year, you could pay back your taxes to the local city or the region or the province, in this case, with this same kind of currency. So this is a bit of a strange idea. It's like, I pay your salary or half of your salary in bonds. You go to eat at her, you have a restaurant right now. You go to eat at her place, you pay with that. she pays, etc., etc. And as provincial government, at some point, I pick up your money. You can also use this in supermarkets to pay the electricity or the rent or whatever. And finally, and this is the one on which I think Argentina is a unique case more than the previous one, is that different groups, especially poor people or people that were not poor but had a very serious loss of income at some point because of the crisis, they said, well, I have the stories with pumpkins. So there were kilos and kilos and kilos of pumpkins. I mean, Argentina is a place, Buenos Aires is a place that you throw a seed in the soil and it will grow. I think it's a little bit like Italy. So these pumpkins kept on growing and growing and growing. And somebody said, I cannot eat all these pumpkins, but can you give me your tomatoes if I give you pumpkins? And this is very complicated. Pumpkins and tomatoes are okay, but if you want a sheep or a cow, it's more difficult. So somebody said, well, let's make a unit of account. And this is how different groups, it was first one, no? It always starts with one, said, well, we can invent some unit of account. An unit of account is difficult. We make papers, we go to the print shop, we cut it, and we have money, because at the end of the day, I need to eat. I don't need to have money. I need to have something. I need pumpkins, I need meat, I need eggs, things that I can use. And this is how this type of community money, they were called créditos, because the idea was we give credit to each other, no? Créditos is we believe in a way each other. And the fifth currency is the private one, you know, the luncheon checks, etc., miles, so this one is clear. When I said that these groups made money, I said it started with one, very small, 30 people, but then it was 5 groups in the city of Buenos Aires, then it was 100 groups, then it was 2 million people. As the economy went from bad to worse, at some point there were 2.5 million people during the worst period of the crisis. Imagine 2.5 million people exchanging things with paper that we can cut behind a piece of paper. You could do 5,000 kilometers from the north of Argentina to the south and still pay with this money created by nothing but agreement. The belief that this will get you something. This, by the way, looks very much like a bubble, no? In the period of the crisis, we have this huge amount, then it goes down. And then we don't know, because as I said, we stop researching. So we distinguish these periods. This is not so relevant, so we go very quickly. When they started, they had a very slow growth. As the crisis went very bad, we have this big hump, this big growth. Then basically it disappeared when the government started thinking that maybe this was not such a good idea to have people making their own money. The World Bank cooperated actively in destroying the system. There was also a lot of loss of trust. You know, when this looks very nice, but then when you think about it, you may say they were crazy, and maybe this is what they also thought at some point. So basically, from one month to the other, there was a really big slump in the number of people that were working in this, were trading into this system. This is what the market would look like. They would use abandoned factories. They asked for permission from the city to use schools, parish, some of them necessarily football stadium, but not any space. And usually
that I discussed with many people that I have different types of Mauricio said he cannot understand. Mauricio, do you think you understand better now? Okay. I said, well, you can use one type of currency to do one thing. So, for example, the creditors will allow you to buy food and other small household necessities. You could buy personal services like healthcare, pay for the plumber or the painter at home. So you could use creditors for more smaller things. There was also this household exchange that you could only do if you have creditors. So you don't have creditors, you simply did not have access to the homemade pasta of your neighbor. For that, you have to be part of the system, you have to be part of this community. You might say, oh, the pesos
were the ones that allowed you more things. It's true, with pesos you could save, but with high inflation, that's maybe not such a good idea. It allowed you to pay taxes. It allowed you to pay taxes. Sorry, I'm reading the chat at the same time. You could.
You check the chat, don't worry.
Okay. So you could pay certain things with, as I said, you could save with pesos or keep on saving until you can buy it. But this was a very bad idea in inflation. With inflation, it's better to do the same in dollars. Now, if you have dollars and you need to take a taxi, I'm not sure that the taxi driver will accept your dollars. Yeah. So if the taxi driver accepts the dollar, fine. Otherwise, you need pesos. So you could have different currencies in your pockets, and you might say, oh, this is very difficult. How do I know which currency to use for what use? And first observation, you had to actually agree on which means of payment you use. So first point, no currency was good for everything. And we see that the plurality of currencies allowed people, and especially poor people, that earn very small amounts of money each day, to have access to more things that they needed than relying on pesos or dollars. They manage different currency circuits. Nobody that has very little money would spend money on changing from one currency to the other. You formed different combinations. If you have a money of less quality, instead of going back home with creditors, I buy water that I can always use the following day. So there was also a system of how people had to manage this. And you might say, this is very complicated. Okay, yes, but being poor is complicated, and you have so many vulnerabilities anyway. So if this is a system that by learning it, you can access and put food in your stomach every day, this is something that people learned very well how to do it. So it gave access, availability to more things that people needed. Is there a social stratification? Yes. If you earned a good salary and you had access to pesos and dollars, why use something else? But if you were a little bit more in the middle, like a teacher, a policeman, you got your salary from the state, and you know the provincial government is in trouble, I better take the provincial money than nothing, because again, I get certainty that I will be able to buy something with this provincial money than no money at all. So more for in the middle, not big salaries, well, middle, the provincial currencies were a good idea. And if you have free time, that you can also participate in the community circles, the community circuits, then you would also go there. So, for example, a doctor that would have free time, not enough patients, etc., would combine all of these. And if his wife at the end of the week could go to one of the complementary currency circuits and bring back home homemade pasta, homemade cakes. This is something that, of course, contributes to the household economy. So there was a social stratification, yes, and there was also a gender stratification. The vast majority were women. And they started by saying, well, yes, this is the worst money that I earn. But eventually they started saying, oh, but this is my money. I don't have to negotiate with my husband. This is mine, my thing. So in terms of empowerment vis-a-vis a patriarchal society, this was also very important for women to be able to manage their own income. There were different perceptions, of course, on reliability and acceptability. We also have, and I underline this again, a period of very severe crisis in the economy. And not only in the economy, a very severe crisis vis-a-vis the state. The undermined belief that the state can help us, that government can help us. And at some point we say, well, this is so much what government can do, the rest is on us as citizens, as agents. So that's something I also think that it's time and space specific. So what I'm saying is also we need to look at the institutional life of money and the endogenous practices, things that come from the social life in themselves and not as a design of money from the central bank. Yes, there are hierarchies, I already said this. We see that some currencies brought extra functions that we economists don't talk about, like women saying, well, this is not something my husband can decide on. They cannot be stolen in situations of high crime areas. Nobody wanted to steal these creditors. So it became very safe money for women to carry around. And the other thing is you could spend it quickly. You don't want to save this, you want to spend it. So you would buy things that you normally would not buy, what were called little indulgences, like women having access to a manicure. And you say, well, this is totally useless, a manicure. I agree, but it made them feel good. So this is also something that contributed, the having to spend quickly contributed to people's well-being. And in the end, my point is that monetary plurality expanded the economic activity at the macro level, if you want, and it also allowed people to reuse and recycle a lot more things than in the regular economy in pesos. So, unlike regular money, complementary currency circuits create these additional incentives. They do not participate in the public debt circuits. It frees a bit of income to do other things. The birthday party of the children, I finished now, don't be mad. It has a multiplier effect in the locality, a multiplier effect in the sense of creating more economic activity. It adapts more to what people need money to do for them. In a way, it created a basic income and it promoted sustainable consumption. So this is when we talk about when we say the human economy, no? That's it. Thank you. I'm sorry for the people that complained about the audio. I'm not sure if I could. Yeah.
No, it works.
Listen to everything.
It works.
Yeah. And I repeat, if somebody feels more comfortable asking in Italian, I will do my best to understand.
Ci sono domande? Andrea, puoi fare quello che vuoi? Andrea.
Well, thank you. I always thought that monetary policy was complex. Now,
more complex.
I'm convinced it's more complex than ever. Now, I'm not familiar with this kind of thing, so just strict curiosity. Maybe they are naive questions, but the very first question is, why do they arise in the first place? So why do local currencies arise in the first place? what is the need? I mean, why they do not use pesos or dollars or whatever. Just very basic one. Second is about inflation. What did you observe in terms of inflation of these currencies compared to pesos? Those were years in which inflation was very high, especially in 2001, 2002 in Argentina. So I'm curious about the comparative with how do you measure it, by the way, and then what was the outcome of that? And the third is about the risks. I mean, imagine if there are, or imagine a crisis of trust, and eventually you are left with paper in your hand. Which also happens with official currencies. Yes? Because usually in Turkey these days, or in Iraq, eventually they were left with nothing, not just paper. But I'm curious about in this case how this could develop.
Raffaella?
Thank you very much. It was very interesting. I mean, the same comment as with Erika before, that I don't know anything about this, but it was really clear.
But we have a restaurant.
Exactly, I have a restaurant. So I have some questions. Some of them are related also to what Andrea was saying somehow. The first is all of this experience you are studying was clearly originated in the crisis, of Argentina and the crisis of pesos and so on. So yeah, I would like also to ask if you think, because of course on the other hand, you show that there are some utilities that goes beyond the crisis. We know that people that has limited financial opportunities could really take advantage of this kind of use of a different kind of currency. But the first question is if you think that even not in a moment of such crisis, this kind of use of currency may emerge, because you made the reference to the time bank, but this is quite different because it's about only services, only activities. So the second question, which is connected, is that at some point you mentioned that the government didn't want this currency to circulate anymore. So this is also a big issue, I think. So how is it possible to make this kind of approach acceptable by the government? Because of course it's a big loss of control, and maybe it's also connected with inflation and the things that Andrea was mentioning. And finally, I was particularly interested in the topic you was mentioning about women empowerment, which is an interesting side effect of this kind of approach. So I would like to ask you if you have any perspective of going back to study what's happening now, because I would be curious to know, and also as far as you know, if this experience of this currency is finished or if it's still ongoing, and in any case, what is left to women empowerment, if something was left by this experience. Thank you very much.
I have a question. Chiara, vai.
I made a question in Italian, please. Credo che ci sia una connessione link between your relation and the other, in the case of autonomy of provinces to make payment with bond of salary and other things that in Italy maybe there is not. Le province possono emettere bond, but the change is in euro, is not in bond. So we can use it for such kind of expenses. So there is a different autonomy in Argentina in respect with Italy. And maybe this is more near to federalism than regionalism. Sorry.
Yeah.
Connected to.
I would like to focus on a specific issues linked to that Raffaella said concerning the sustainability of these social currencies in terms of amount of exchanges above all. Especially for those that work at locally and that are related to social network. Because in your case study, the development of this system are strongly linked to economic crisis. Yeah. So my interest is to understand what happens in terms of sustainability during ordinary periods, during no crisis period. Because my feeling is that this kind of system tend to remain, to stay within their boundaries during ordinary periods, because they don't want to undergo to mechanisms that tend to homogenize their initial goals, their organizational arrangements with respect to external influences, external stakeholders. What do you think about that?
Oops. Okay, let me see if I think the questions are very related, in fact. So let's see if I can link them. And I think it's important, yes, the case of Argentina is the only one in any studies of complementary currency circuits in which we talk about millions. Yeah, so you study, I don't know, anyone in any of the systems in France, in Japan, in the US, and they count members in hundreds. Yeah, and so actually the case of Argentina allows us to see what this can do in a situation of crisis, but of course it's a unique case, and we need to continue seeing it as a unique case, but unique cases also open up our ideas, no? So I think the 2.5 million is definitely linked to a crisis, and I don't know, I don't think it would be even thinkable that anyone would use something that is backed up only by communality or solidarity if pesos are available. So this is something that I have to say humbly that, yes, you cannot de-link this from the crisis. However, as I said, it allows us to think, yeah, and to imagine what is possible. And what is possible outside periods of crisis is to think that we can create different types of money for example, to change behavior and to promote a more sustainable economy. And this is happening. If you do something that is good for the environment, we have to define the good, but recycling, etc., and you get paid points or credits or something for it, that will allow you to go to the municipal swimming pool or to the beach or use municipal services, then we can start thinking, okay, we don't really need a crisis for this to happen. And these systems exist, by the way. Or I would also argue that people who live on $2 a day or €5 a day, they live in a permanent state of crisis. So I think the crisis is never finished for them. And in at this level, this kind of credits are much easier to obtain because you make coffee and you start selling coffee in the street, and then you will have something which is, yes, a lower quality type of money, but this allows you to eat. Yeah, so between going hungry and having a low quality type of money, there is a risk, I acknowledge this, but I still prefer to get something to eat, yeah, at the end of the day. So you cannot separate from this type of low quality money, the creditors, from the context in which they are used. Another thing that is, by the way, there are systems by which poor people recycle. Imagine for this plastic bottle, I don't know how many million plastic bottles you must collect in Rome, yeah, in this weather. So imagine you give one credito to each person that takes this to recycle. And with this one credito, somebody at the end of the day can buy a proper meal. You don't spend much, you just recycle something that in fact this plastic has value. So you can actually help a lot of poor people, low-income people in Rome by helping the city collect the rubbish. So I'm not promoting this system per se. I am aware of the risks, but I also think it lets us imagine what else is possible. So why don't you use dollars or pesos? Because you can't access them. The guy that sleeps in the street, pesos or dollars. The persons that sleep in the street in Termini or in this, what was it, the Vittorio Emanuele Square, they don't have pesos, dollars, euros. They have plastic bottles that people throw in the rubbish. So you can't separate who is the agent from what type of money he, she is using. Inflation, yes, all money, all paper money has this problem. This year, at this point in the last 12 months, Argentina had 110% inflation in the last 12 months. So people are trying to defend the value of what they do, and they buy dollars. So again, you see this transition. I mean, the many decades of inflation give you a lot of practice in, you become a very good athlete in defending your value from inflation, and you are very good in passing from one type of currency to the other. And this is what I'm trying to say. Does this have a future beyond the crisis? Has it finished? Whether this has finished, I could not say. There are no official statistics. What I know is I was told the system died in 2006, and I collected data in 2016. So I don't know. What I can say is that there is a new system that is completely digital. It's called PAR, P-A-R. The A is for autosuficiencia, no? Is self-reliance. And this is growing in different parts of the country. But as I say, it's not with paper, it's with digital transactions. So it hasn't died, it has had a metamorphosis in something very different. But that's social life, no? Nothing is lost. There is always a metamorphosis in something else. Why the government is against loss of control? Yes. In Germany, there is a system called Regiogeld. At some point, the Central Bank of Germany said, these people are making money. They sent a consultant to find out. The consultant came back saying, don't worry, they are too small. They are just, 1,000 people in a city in the south of Germany. Don't worry about it. But yes, of course, for the government, this is a loss of control. But as citizens, I don't know, I'm thinking of the Argentine government. If the government loses control and I am the one winning control, I'm okay with that. So in terms of citizenship, this underlines the space of agents of what we can do as a community. Women empowerment, was anything left? Many women became community leaders. This was a school for them, and they say, oh, I've learned how to manage people. I learned, more importantly, perhaps, that I can do it. So imagine a person that she says, I don't work. She has raised children, manage a household, but she expresses it like, I don't work. I help my husband. And her discourse changed into, I can do it. I can manage. I can feed my children myself. I don't need to negotiate with my husband. So in terms of empowerment, I think this is very big. This has stayed. Many of them became entrepreneurs because they learned that they could manage a business. Of course, 20 years later, what exactly is left? I cannot really answer this question. What I think is that it led to a change of mentality in the role of women in the household. Well, you can imagine the rest of the story of empowerment. On federalism, Chiara asked about federalism. Yes, provinces loved the possibility of doing it. From a legal point of view, most provincial constitutions do not have, I mean, it's not regulated. It's extra legal. It's not legal or illegal, it's extra legal, not regulated. There's a legal term for this, I don't remember, when it's not illegal. Well, you know what I mean.
I don't know.
It's indeterminate, yeah. And afterwards, it was determined what they can and cannot do, and at that point, they present this as a discount voucher. So if it is a discount of 100%, that means you can pay with the credit. Yeah, you get the idea is a little bit turning around the law. Yeah. So I give you this, it costs €1, but I give you 100% if you give me this voucher. So it was presented in a way which is still legal, but going around, this is not money anymore, it's a voucher, a discount voucher of 100%. So they found a way around it. I understand in Italy it's not allowed to pay salaries, especially public salaries, in anything that is not legal tender, no, euros. But I also have heard that there are some loopholes for use between private persons, call it an organization or something like that. So even if some people say, yes, I am willing to accept 10% of my salary in something else, I understand in Italy this is not allowed. This is legally forbidden. But I also heard from an Italian colleague, legal expert, that there are ways of going around this as well. So it's a matter of being a bit creative sometimes. Sustainability and the amount of exchanges, no, I don't think this can survive outside of a crisis. If you have access to something else, you need to be, I don't know, you need to be in love with the system. But there are other systems, like I said, that are sustainable, not 2.5 million people. And quite frankly, I don't think these systems can survive with 2.5 million people. And they should not. They should be a small, local, because otherwise the idea of solidarity becomes very blurred. And then you have the issue of risk and credibility, etc. So in answer to your question, I think, no, you cannot separate the system from the crisis.
There is a question of Maurizio Luzena.
Yes, I see. Hello, Maurizio. Thank you for the question. The function of credit. This is very good. Yes, one of the aspects that make the Argentine system so unique is the size, but also the diversity. Because I said some of these networks were huge and covered the entire country, and other networks were 200 people going to church together saying we start exchanging. So you have the 200 people in only one place, or the 1.2, I think was the largest one, covering the entire country. And some of them indeed gave loans to each other. So with these loans, you could buy bigger things like a bicycle. Yeah? So a second-hand bike. By the way, this is also something that I found out, the amount of things that we don't use, no, that we have at home, like a bicycle that we, 1st of January, we said, oh, I'm going to start biking, and then the bike stays at home. And this is something that someone else can use. And this system facilitated that people recirculated all these goods that were staying at home, or typically children that grow up and the toys are left somewhere in a box, and other children can use them. So it facilitated this reuse or recirculation of a lot of things. And for this, one of the things that they said that they did in many of these groups was a loan. How was this done? Either by re-entering a certain amount of money in the system, or everybody contributes to a pot. Like everybody puts a bit of money in a pot, and this pot is used to give loans to somebody in the group. When this person pays it back, the pot is given as a loan to somebody else. Yeah, this is Mauricio's question, and then Andrea asks. Oh, okay, thank you. Yes, thank you. Thank you for the questions. You made me think again on this idea of federalism. Thank you, Chiara. I think I've answered everything. So.
Can I add another small question?
Yeah.
Sorry. So this thing of, it's very interesting as you put it, connected with the community, no, as a solidarity mechanism. But at the same time, I was thinking, when you mentioned that now involving digital money is experience, I was thinking about Bitcoins, which is also another kind of currency, which some countries are kind of trying to regulate and others are not, but that has nothing to do with solidarity. And on the other hand, some of the experiences, for example, the thing of plastic bottles, there are this kind of mechanism somehow, but they're managed by the municipality. Also in Italy, you can take the bottles and you get credit for I don't know, the place and so on. So I don't know, I think the question is currency, solidarity, and exchange. There are three different contexts that sometimes they overlap, like in the experience you're talking about in Argentina, but they may also not overlap. You can have solidarity and exchange, but not currency, or you can have a different kind of currency that has nothing to do with solidarity. I don't know if this makes sense. It just...
You have just given me an idea for a new paper. But it's a very interesting question. Actually, the project of Bitcoin, the original project, was a very anarchist project,
yeah,
in which they said, "Hey, I'm paying a bank to put to exchange bytes in a computer. Everybody has computers and spare capacity. Why do we pay the banks for that?" So it was an interesting project of emancipation from these guys that make a lot of money out of us. This is what the original project aimed at. However, it derived into you can pay guns in Iran, yeah, and money laundering. It derived into a lot of things out of the government's control. So the first project has a very, if you accepted Bitcoins in the original project, it's because you were somehow attracted to this anarchist project of we go against the banks. Now, afterwards, it was misused, you could say. However, a lot of the donations right now for Ukraine have been done in Bitcoins because, well, of the situation of the war. So I think every instrument has this double side that, does it have solidarity in it? I think the principle of the Bitcoin had an interesting idea of solidarity. Perhaps it didn't live up to its expectation, or perhaps yes, I don't know. And the other point is that the credibility or the trust is in the technology. It's better to have an anonymous technology as crypto, whatever, and blockchain technology than having to trust in another human being. So in the original project, the technology was put above the interpersonal trust that was required for such a circuit to function. What is this? The techno-optimism, no? Mm-hmm. And well, many people still think that technology is better than humans. It's a huge discussion on what we think technology can do for us, no? But I think there is a substantial percentage of people in the world that think that technologies are more reliable than human beings, or human error, or whatever. But yes, you can actually have, in this triangle, you can have different combinations.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm thinking aloud. I don't have an answer, in fact, to your question. Yeah. Thank you.
Se non ci sono altre domande, ringrazierei Erika Alban e Giorgina Gomez per i loro contributi interessantissimi che hanno dato insomma vita a un bel dibattito. Grazie, ci vediamo prossimamente.
Thank you. No, the